Right. Good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to be back here in Beltech. It's been a while for me. I think I was looking there, 2016 was the last time I spoke at Beltech. So it's great to see the software engineering track back. One thing I noticed at the conference today so far is the great diversity among all of the speakers and the audience or on the attendees. So well done to the organising team. It's great to see. So what am I going to talk about today? Decentralized or self-sovereign identities. There's been a lot of talk today about, kind of this AI emerging technology and lots of very interesting use cases. Decentralized identity is a bit more of a sort of foundational building block. So I'm going to talk a little about why decentralized identity, why we need it, what it is, and kind of how it's implemented. And my hope is to provoke you a little bit and to make you think a little bit deeper about the topic so that when you leave here, you go away and you look it up, right? You get interested enough to look it up and find out a little more about it. First question, right, for the audience. How many of you, show of hands please, and don't be shy, have lost or had your personal data leaked by an organization? The rest of you just don't know. Honestly, and I'm going to show you how to find out. So have you ever heard of this website, Have I Been Pwned? There's another one, databreach.com. So you can go onto one of these websites, type in your email address, your phone number, your social security number, your IP address, hit search, or your password, right, the one that you continually reuse and add a number onto the end of it, and find out, has it been leaked, right? Databreach.com has, I think, 26 billion records of data lost. Like last year, there was an agency in the US that lost 3 billion personal records of people's names, addresses, social security numbers. A little bit closer to home, the post office lost 94,000 records just last month, right, of names and addresses. So this is constant. And what's the issue? Right, there's a few different issues, right? Firstly, we have weak passwords, right? People are using weak passwords. They're reusing passwords, and they're not using two-factor authentication. So that's one issue, okay? And you can see a huge rise in the use of password managers because of this problem. And 1Password is like 15 million users now. LastPass, interesting, 25 million users. But guess what? They got breached and lost all 25 million vaults a couple of years ago. Right? So that's a problem in itself, right? The next problem is there's increased kind of activity in hacking and increased sophistication from the hackers, right? They're trying harder. They're becoming more sophisticated at breaking into these companies and breaking into you, right, with their phishing scams. There's definitely poor security practices, exercised by the companies that are holding this data. But the last thing, and this is kind of on topic for this talk, is why have they got all this data? Why have all of these companies, why are they holding all of this personal data about us? So yeah, just some little statistics here. This is from 2022, right? So the kind of data, right, that these companies are holding and they're losing, right, includes social security numbers, home addresses, bank account numbers, medical histories. It's crazy the amount of data that these guys are holding for us. On us. And it's not just the big companies that you might think. This has a huge impact on small businesses. A Vodafone survey done recently, over half of UK small and medium enterprise have suffered an attack or a breach in the last 12 months. And it's estimated to cost UK small and medium enterprises 3.4 billion a year, right? So this is a huge problem. So back to what's the issue, right? Okay, passwords and security measures are a problem, but it is the fact that we're giving far too much data to these companies. And why do they need it? Now, I'm not suggesting for one moment that these companies are evil. Maybe they are, but that's not what I'm saying. But they're at least irresponsible. They're at least irresponsible with their data. When I was doing a little bit of research for this talk, I found out about a company, I'll not say their name just in case, but what they do is they map anonymized cookies, like browsing cookies, to real people and sell that data, right? So they've got lots of algorithms, I'm sure supported by AI, that figure out right, that actually was you. Even though you weren't logged on or anything, it was anonymous. It's linking it to real people and they're selling it. Now, I object to that because I did not give them permission to do that, right? And that's the problem. So let's look at an example. How many people have done this, right? You go to hire your car, you check into a hotel, right? You go to do a property rental and they say, oh, can I just take a copy of your passport? Right, why? Right, and are they going to look after it? I had a recent experience. My kids are at college now, and was dealing with an estate agent, for their accommodation, their student accommodation. And the lady says, "Oh, can I just take a copy of your passport?" And I said, "Well, what are you going to do with it?" And I said, "Like, I'm here. You can verify it's me. So what do you want it for? And how are you going to look after it?" And she looked at some unlocked cupboard, and I said, "No, you can check that it's me, but I'm not giving it to you, right?" Because she didn't need it. She just needed to check that it was me, and there was no need for her to have that. So how do we start to fix this? We shift the responsibility back to the user, right? So we put you back in control, and you decide what information to share, with whom, and for how long, with the ability to revoke it. And you only share what's necessary. You don't overshare, right? So let's look at a little bit more detail. I want to differentiate between digitized versus decentralized. So on the left-hand side, you have a driver's license, and it's just a digital version of your driver's license. It's got all of the information, your name, your date of birth, whether you're a donor or not, your driving categories, right? And you want to avail of a service, right, that requires you to prove that you're an adult, right, that you're over 18. So what do? You show them your driving license. What are you doing? You're oversharing. So in the case on the left, you're giving far much more information than you need to give. So on the right-hand side, you can see all you're actually providing here, this thing that's highlighted in the bottom, is that you're over 18, right? Because that's all you need to provide. So how do we do that, right? And I introduce you to this idea of verified credentials, okay? So at the center of this is the individual, or the holder, the person who holds these verified credentials. And the other parties or players in this are issuers, who are like trust anchors, who will grant you some certificate. In the case of the driving license, some government body, the DVLA or whatever, that says, yeah, this person has a driving license, we've validated it, we've checked their date of birth, they're over 18. So it might be them who issue this particular credential. And that's all the credential says. It's just proof that you're over 18, because that's the only thing that's required. So then when the holder holds this in their digital wallet, right, and increasingly we all know what digital wallets are, we've got our Apple Pay and everything, and then you present that to some service provider, some utility, some website, some physical in-store, and they are able to verify it. And they verify it against what we call, this verified credential data registry. So this is kind of a repository of these credentials, and it doesn't even have to be a repository of the credentials. It just has to be a way to look up the issuer, right, and to ensure that the credential is valid and was issued by one of these trust anchors. Okay, so importantly here, the issuer is uniquely identified and can be proven cryptographically. The holder is the same, the verifiers are the same, and the credentials themselves are the same. So they're each uniquely identified, and they can be proven independently using math and cryptography. So that's the question. Where does blockchain come into this? I work for the blockchain lab. So you've got all this kind of identity information. You don't want one company or one entity, right, to be able to hold on to, this data registry, because what happens if they decide to shut it down? If they run out of money, or the government tries to force them, right, then it's gone, and you lose your ability to identify yourself or prove that you've got some credential. So blockchain's obviously described famously in The Economist magazine as a trust machine, right? Using the math, using the cryptography, it ensures that the data can be secured and the integrity of the data can be ensured, and it's available because it's a decentralized system. So this all seems great. So why aren't we all using it, right? I ask the same question, and I've seen some really interesting, DID projects falling away, losing funding, shutting down. But there is hope. So I don't know if you ever heard of the e-government scheme in Estonia. So every adult citizen in Estonia is issued with an e-government ID, and they use it to vote. Or if you want to start a new business in Estonia, you need to use your digital ID. So they are definitely leading the charge. But the good news for those who would be EU citizens, about 400 million of us are about to get a digital identity in the very near future. There's a World Wide Web consortium, W3C, have got standards around the verifiable credential data model. So that's great. So we're tackling the standards piece. But we do need greater adoption, because this is kind of network effect. So the more people use this, right, the more people issue verifiable credentials, the more systems accept them, services accept them, the greater they'll become. And they'll become just part of how we identify ourselves and how we prove things. One of the challenges, however, that I see is the resistance, right? And the resistance, as you can imagine, is from the service providers who we would want to verify these credentials. Not really in their interest, right, to stop collecting your data, right? They want it, they like it, they enjoy it, they use it for our benefit sometimes. So there needs to be a better incentive model probably for those service providers to embrace this approach. I'm not going to go through this, but it's a really cool infographic, so just stick it on here. But the example is, it's a student with a digital ID issued by the university as a verified credential. She goes off to services inside the campus, outside of the campus, to prove that she's a student, and she can avail of services like access to the library, discount in bookstores, both on and off campus, and importantly, she gets to be able to revoke this data or these verifiable credentials from people who she no longer wants to share that with. And so there's a really nice example, and there is a whole video to go with this on the Microsoft Security YouTube channel, so it's worth a look. And I'll finish with the idea that although I've talked about people, right, individuals, as we kind of embrace AI and we have AI people, AI agents we call them, they all need to identify themselves. They need to uniquely identify themselves and prove who they are so that they can interact with other agents and other models and other services. So whilst I've talked about people, it's just as relevant in the world of AI as we move forward. So that's the end of my talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fergal, for your super interesting and, might I say, super scary talk. Everyone will be going to that site afterwards just for a quick check. And it's really interesting, the breadth of data being held on us and the concept of verified credentials and what the blockchain could do.